All right, welcome back to WMAC Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson. Tonight, I want to talk about the one Atomweight World Grand Prix, more specifically, the road to the final. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about this Grand Prix and how it started, and we're going to go over every step of the way up until the final, which today is Sunday, November 28th, and the final for the Grand Prix is going to be at this Friday, December 3rd. So we're going to start all the way at its beginnings late last year of 2020, and then we're going to go into the matchups they made, the changes that went along the way. I'll tell you what, this Grand Prix might be the most cursed Grand Prix I've ever seen. We had roster changes, lineup changes, injuries, illnesses, you name everything that could possibly go wrong with a mixed martial arts Grand Prix, and it pretty much happened with this one. So let's go ahead and get started. So One Championship announced that they were going to have a Atomweight World Grand Prix back in around October or November of 2020 because Angela Lee, the one Atomweight champion, announced that she was pregnant and she was going to be out for a good while. So almost immediately, One Championship CEO Chatri Sityotam said, well, we're going to have a big Atomweight World Grand Prix. It's going to be the biggest women's Grand Prix that the world had ever seen in mixed martial arts. And then right then and there, the waiting game started. They said it was going to start early in 2021, and it just never happened. We were waiting and waiting and waiting for them to even announce who was going to be in it. And then finally around April, around the time when the Grand Prix should have been ending, April, May, we finally got the announcement. So they announced all the fighters that were going to be participating. And here they are in the picture to my left. Let's start from the top left and go clockwise. We had Mung Bo from China, Sahi Ham from South Korea, Stamp Fairtex of Thailand, Aliona Rasohina of the Ukraine, Denise Zamboanga from the Philippines, Ritu Phogat from India, Itsuki Hirata from Japan, and finally Elise Anderson from the U.S. So they had the lineup announced, and they announced the setup. They announced the matches. In the first round, it was going to be Zamboanga taking on Ham, Rasohina taking on Fairtex in a rematch of a fight they had early in 2020. Itsuki Hirata taking on Elise Anderson, and then Mung Bo taking on Ritu Phogat. So you had your quarterfinal set, and it was supposed to go down in September at One Empower. Well, then we had some more changes going on. So because of the event getting pushed back from early May to then early September, Ritu Phogat took on a fight against B. Nguyen, lost that. She then fought two more times and then found her way back into the Grand Prix, which means that two different fighters were tasked to replace her, and then they both got pushed into the alternate bouts. So then we finally got the lineup back again, and it ended up being Ritu Phogat fighting her way back into the Grand Prix, and it was never going to be otherwise. Like Chatri Sityotam basically said, like there was no way we were not going to have Ritu Phogat end up back in this Grand Prix. I got to admire his honesty in that one. So we had the original matchups set back up for the Grand Prix, and they were going to take place at One Empower on Friday, September 3rd. It was going to be headlined by a women's strawweight world championship between champion Seong Jin-nan and Michelle Nicolini, and they added an alternate bout, Mei Yamaguchi taking on Julie Meza Barba. So then we went on to One Empower. The first fight of the day was the alternate bout between Mei Yamaguchi and Meza Barba, and Meza Barba just absolutely handled Mei Yamaguchi en route to a unanimous decision. Bit of an upset there because, no one had really heard of Meza Barba before then. There weren't any full recordings of her fights, only some short highlights available of her online. So we didn't really know what she was going to bring into this bout, but she used her height and her reach and her striking to just really outpoint Yamaguchi all the way en route to a decision win. So we went into the first of the actual Grand Prix quarterfinal bouts. Itsuki Hirata faced off against Elise Anderson, and this was Hirata's toughest challenge to date. A lot of people that follow One Championship closely, but maybe don't follow Invicta closely, were unfamiliar with Anderson. Those of us who follow Invicta on a regular basis knew that Anderson was a tough atomweight veteran from Invicta, had a good array of skills. Hirata, though, used her judo very well en route to a decision, got dropped by Anderson in the third round, almost finished, but she fought her way through it, actually showed some heart. This was Hirata's toughest fight by far, and the first time she went to decision. Then in the second quarterfinal, we had what might be the biggest upset of this Grand Prix. Mungbo took on Ritu Phogat, and Mungbo hurt Ritu Phogat hard in the second round, in the first round. Came very close to finishing Ritu Phogat, but Phogat held on. Second round again, Phogat got clipped hard by Mungbo, but came back, took Mungbo down and put her on her back and kept her there for the second round, and then came out and did it again in the third round en route to a unanimous decision victory. Ritu Phogat upsetting Mungbo and really showed some growth in that fight and an ability to get out of trouble spots that she hadn't shown before, because most of her fights were fairly easy before this. So Ritu Phogat was your second semifinalist. Then we moved on to the third quarterfinal bout. Aliona Rasohina rematching Stamp Fairtex from a fight earlier in the year, where Rasohina defeated Stamp in the very closing seconds of the fight via guillotine submission. This fight lived up to everything that the first fight brought and more. I thought it was a very close fight, very good back and forth fight. Both fighters showed their strengths. Both fighters showed new strengths in areas that people weren't expecting them to. Rasohina showed good stand-up ability, and Stamp again showed good grappling ability on the ground. Both fighters came close to finishing each other. It went to the judges, and I believe it went to a split decision. This time, Stamp Fairtex got her revenge. So Stamp Fairtex was your third quarterfinalist to move on to the semifinals. Then we moved on to the fourth and final quarterfinal bout of the evening. Denise Zamboanga taking on Sahi Ham. And this bout was controversial. It's a very close bout, very largely uneventful. You could say Ham was doing the better striking work. Zamboanga was doing better grappling work in the clinch, mostly pressing Ham against the cage. They had an accidental clash of heads in the third round. At one point, the fight got stopped because the clash of heads caused a big cut on Zamboanga's head. Doctor came in, checked on it, deemed she was okay to continue. Zamboanga came blasting out of her corner, picked up Ham, took her down, was able to keep her on her back, but both were landing ground and pound. Denise from on top, Ham from on her back. It went to the judges and ended up being Ham, your winner, via split decision. Very controversial, ended up being reviewed and everything. The judges upheld that decision. So your fourth and final quarterfinalist moving on to the semifinals was Sahi Ham. So we had the four quarterfinalists set: Hirata, Phogat, Stamp, and Ham. And they were supposed to move on, and it was going to take place on 29th October at One Championship Next Gen. However, we had some more changes going on. First up, Sahi Ham fractured a finger, was unable to continue in the Grand Prix. She ended up getting replaced by Julie Meza Barba. So Meza Barba would go on to face Stamp Fairtex. Oh, by the way, before I go any farther, the semifinal matchups were decided by vote, and they picked Stamp Fairtex versus Sahi Ham and Ritu Phogat versus Itsuki Hirata. So we had striker versus striker and grappler versus grappler. So No matter what happened in the semifinals, the votes were going to guarantee a striker versus grappler battle in the finals. So anyway, like I was saying, Sahi Ham fractured a finger on, I believe, her right hand and could not continue. So the alternate, Julie Meza Barba, came in and replaced her. Then, a week out from the fight, Itsuki Hirata came down ill, developed a fever, could not get cleared. So Hirata was now out and replaced by alternate Jenilyn Olsum. So then Olsum would go in to face Ritu Phogat. So that was one next gen on October 29th with the two Atomweight Grand Prix semifinals in the co-main and main event spot. And there you have them, facing off, all four of them. So the first bout, Ritu Phogat taking on Jenilyn Olsum. Jenilyn Olsum came in on a week notice, and I'll tell you what, she did very good in this bout. I believe it was in the first round. She hit Phogat with a knee, rocked her. Unfortunately, she failed to capitalize. Unfortunately for her, I should say. She failed to capitalize on it. I thought she possibly could have finished Phogat right then and there, but she just did not capitalize on it. Phogat went out there, had one game plan in mind, and that's what she stuck to, wrestling. Wrestling, 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 get her opponent down, and work on ground and pound. Olsum was not really there to have any of that. She did very well, keeping her guard up, trapping Phogat in her guard, threw some ground and pound, threw some submissions from her back, did pretty well. But at the end of the day, she was just on the defensive too much, and it ended up being Ritu Phogat moving on to be the first finalist in the Grand Prix. In the second bout, in the main event of Next Gen, Stamp Fairtex faced off against Julie Meza Barba. And there was a war of words leading into this bout, mostly coming from Meza Barba's end. And these two had a really fun back and forth first round. I thought that Fairtex was ahead just slightly at the end of the first round, but I'll tell you what, she really stepped up and stepped ahead in the second and third round. Even took Meza Barba down, and I believe she had her mounted at one point, and just really showed that, you know, you may be able to talk a good game, but you also have to be able to bring a good game into the circle for this bout. So it went to the judges, and they all saw it for Stamp Fairtex to be the second finalist. So now we are at the finals. We saw Stamp Fairtex move on, beating Julie Meza Barba to take on Ritu Phogat, who beat Jenilyn Olsum. So Stamp versus Ritu, and it's going to go down this Friday, December 3rd at One Winter Warriors in Singapore. I think this fight's going to be very interesting. I'm working on a preview for this one. I should have it done sometime in the next 24 hours, I'm hoping. But I think this is going to be a good one. We got a classic striker versus grappler battle. Muay Thai versus wrestling. And who is going to be able to execute their game plan? Who is going to be able to better stop the other fighter from executing their game plan? Who's going to be able to hold each other off? Whose style is going to win the day here? We both know what each of these fighters are going to come in to do. Stamp is going to look to keep it on the feet and use her Muay Thai. Ritu, she only does one thing, wrestle. She's going to look to come out and look to get the takedowns and work towards passing the guard, get to the side control and the crucifix, and lay the ground and pound, because that's, I think, all of her finishes have come that way. So we both know what these two fighters are going to do. We all know what both of these fighters are going to come out and look to do. The big question is going to be who's going to end up winning. I'm not making a prediction just yet. I'm going to save that for my preview. But I think this is going to be fun. And then the winner of this, sometime early next year, gets to challenge one atomweight champion, Angela Lee, for her title. Angela Lee will finally come back after almost 3 years away to defend her title. So there you have it, the road to the finals of the One Atomweight World Grand Prix. I thought this was a good tournament overall, in spite of all the shenanigans, the delays. I mean, just so many delays. First due to putting the roster together, then the COOF hit it, I think, twice. Just so many delays, and then controversies, injuries, just so much going on, illnesses. Honestly, this tournament, this Grand Prix was cursed from the outset, basically. But I'll tell you what, the fights themselves ended up being good. We haven't had a finish yet in this Grand Prix. I'm actually hoping we get to see one in the finals. If we can get at least one finish there, then it'll all be worth it. And then the winner goes on to face Angela Lee, and then we get to see, is Angela ready to come back? She's been gone for a long time. And which of these two homegrown one championship fighters, because both of these ladies, it ended up being 2-1 homegrown fighters in the finals. And which of their homegrown new young fighters is going to win? And which of them, will that winner be able to dethrone the current queen of that division? I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like the video, please give it a like. Share it as well. Help other people to see it and find it out. Spread the word about this final going down this Friday, December 3rd. One Championship Winter Warriors coming at you out of Singapore. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to WMMA Scene Now, the most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.